Welcome to Real Talk, Real Growth. I'm your host, Linda Ostovitz. You know me as direct and to the point, real talk, and always looking for ways we can connect and help each other prosper. Real growth. Join me each month as I have meaningful, practical discussions with guests who are on the cutting edge of business. We'll talk and you'll grow. This is Real Talk, Real Growth. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Talk, Real Growth. I'm your host, Linda Ostovitz, and today I have joining me my guest, Wendy Elover, who is, now listen to this title, a joy and clarity strategist. We've never had one of those on Real Talk, Real Growth, and today we're going to find out what that is, what that means, who Wendy's clientele is, and how you can live your life with more joy and more clarity that makes every day a little easier, as I understand it. Wendy, welcome. So happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Wendy and I met each other many years ago through the Business Women's Network of Howard County. And as we know, I don't ask people to join us unless I know them well and think they really have something great to add and are good people, because as we know, I choose to only spend time with good people. And Wendy fits all those categories. She impresses. And even though we haven't seen each other as regularly in recent years, there's some people in this life that you think, I know who I can count on. I know who I can reach out to. And Wendy is one of those people. So, Wendy, my dear, what is a joy and clarity strategist?
All right. Well, gee, after that introduction, I'm just going to need a minute. That was very
Take
sweet.
it.
Thank you.
You can
I
have a minute.
appreciate it. I work with people who are very successful and they have too many tabs open. And I say that it could be in their head, it could be on their computer, it could just be in their life in general. They're busy business people and they don't look lost. They're very capable people. They're very put together. They're the kind of people that you look at and go, wow, they have just really got it going on. But inside, they feel foggy. They feel like they're just pulled in too many directions at once. It's like they have too many decisions, they have too many people counting on them, and they just aren't quite sure what is the most important thing that they need to focus on right at this second. So they're not lost, they're not confused, they're just full.
And they're not broken, right? They don't need
They're
to be
not.
fixed.
They're not broken and they do not need fixing. Absolutely not. They don't come to me because they don't know what to do. They come because everything feels so important that makes even the simplest decisions just feel so heavy. They just need some space and some time.
So, how did you get into the subject matter, Wendy, of being a joy and clarity strategist?
Yeah, I never even knew that idea existed. And honestly, I don't know that there's anybody else who has that title except me. It's a title I created, but
You are extraordinary.
well, thank you. But, you know, I had never really looked at certifications. I believed in experience over certifications, but then I found out there was a certified happiness coach. And when I heard that, I was like, that's not just my business. That's really my life brand. It's what I'm all about. And when I got into that, I realized that there's very intentional issues around joy and around clarity. It's not just something where, oh, I'm going to wake up today and I'm going to feel happy. That there's actually things that people can do to acknowledge the joy more in their life, to bring and encourage more of those joyful moments in their life. And then I realized that before people really have the ability to take that breath and really experience joy, first they need clarity. Because when you're clear, joy comes. It just follows.
So, when you say they need clarity, what does clarity look like and how does one get there?
Yeah, so the first thing that I always start with is clarity is not certainty. It's just enough calm that you can actually know what the next honest, true step is that you can take at that point in life. And I think that's a really big distinction because I don't think that we're always going to know exactly where we're going and what we're doing every second of every day. But it's quieting that noise enough so that you can be very intentional in what your next move is instead of just what's the loudest thing that you have to take care of.
And how do we get there, though? I understand, and you talked about too many tabs open, which we'll address a little in a little more detail a little bit later, but there is a lot of noise. And you talk about the characterizations of the people that you work with who are high functioning and very successful. Noise. I think we all understand noise. How do we quiet that so we can get to the or move closer to the clarity?
Sure. For me, I actually decided I love acronyms. So for me, I have a framework called the SPACE framework, and it really is SPACE. And the first thing is really slowing down for a minute. Clarity rarely shows up when everything feels incredibly urgent. So I help my clients to slow down the conversation, to just slow down some of that internal pressure so they can actually hear themselves think again. And I think that's one of the biggest things is, that we don't rush clarity. We make room for it and then it shows up. And then pulling out the real question. Usually when people come to me, they have 5 to 10 or 30 different things that they think we're talking about. So one of the things that we do is sorting through all of those different things, all of those competing priorities that people are facing every moment of every day, and figuring out what is that one thing that if we could just get clear on that one thing right now, everything else would feel lighter. And then we acknowledge what's heavy, right? Because unmade decisions, they carry a lot of emotional weight. And so we've got to make space for that. There's fear, there's responsibility, there's expectations, there's a lot of pressure that people are holding. So we don't want to fix it. We don't want to minimize it. We want to acknowledge it and realize it's a full moment. And then we want to be able to move on from that. And then when we get to see, that's the actual clarifying, right? We're going to figure out what matters the most in that very moment. And I know that sounds, oh, that's such an easy thing, right? It's not really all that easy, but it brings in a whole bunch of different things, right? Your values, your priorities, the season of life that you're coming into. And it's about separating the noise from that, what's really that inside truth. So that way people can start choosing what they actually believe they should be doing instead of focusing on all the shoulds and the have tos, which I think, especially as women, we are very tied to sometimes because not every good option is going to be your particular option. And then finally, the E, we got to ease into what that step is because it doesn't always mean there's a big plan. It means what's the next best step. So, again, our goal is not to have certainty all the time, it's to be able to trust ourselves again. There you have it.
Yeah. Okay. So space sounds like a really good word to use in connection with engaging in this process. But I'm very curious, again, when you talk about your clientele who are high performers, run teams, don't slow down for anything. And how do you say to those people, any of us who are listening here who are those people, by the way, and we walk among us all the time,
Yes.
give yourself some space. I mean, I could hear some, what are you kidding me? I don't have any space. How do you take those people and say, look into my eyes? I'm telling you, slow down and work through this.
Yep. And it definitely is a process, right? And sometimes it's easy and sometimes exactly what you're talking about. You can't just look somebody in the eye and say, "Let's do this thing." And they go, "Okay, great, I'm in." I think for me, a lot of it goes back to my own story as how I got to this place. For me, I was always the capable one, right? The reliable one, the perfectionist, the one who would take everything on and just keep things moving. And because I'm familiar with that space, I get them, right? I understand them. So it's not like we jump in and I go, okay, we're going to just clear our minds, especially if anybody who does meditation, and that's fantastic. I was always that person who said, I can't stop thinking. Because when I stop thinking, then I'm thinking about the fact that I'm not thinking. And so that's as bad as thinking about things, right? So it's not something that we do in a second. It's something that takes time, but there is a process. And a lot of it has to do with just starting with a brain dump. Right? We don't start with like, okay, what is the one thing that we need to talk about? Because if they knew that one thing, they would not be talking to me. We start off with a brain dump. We talk about just all the things. And sometimes just hearing that out loud, hearing yourself talk about all the responsibilities, all the things that you're dealing with, all of the stuff that you're supposed to make decisions about, that in and of itself is enough for you to understand, wow, now I understand why I can't move forward with such and such. And then that's where the conversation starts. And it really is, it's a conversation. It's not a 2-second process, but it is so doable. And relief happens a lot quicker than people expect sometimes. We can do a lot when you can get things out, you can hear yourself think again, you can hear the things that you're actually dealing with, then it's easier to start categorizing them, sorting through them. And the same way that, we always are more prone to keep an appointment that we have with someone else than with ourselves. When you have an appointment to get clear and you're paying for it usually, in that case, it gets real very quickly, and we get to the heart of things. We don't mess around because time is money, and I understand that, but clarity is priceless.
That's a couple of good ways to get people's attention. You refer to yourself as a recovering perfectionist, and you talk about your own experience that has brought you to the place where you are right now. What do you mean by that? A recovering perfectionist?
Yeah, I say recovering, and with all due respect to people who are actually recovering from real, true life issues. But for me, I feel like once you are a perfectionist, you can manage it, you can recognize it, and you can try to adjust the way that you handle situations. But you're always going to have that in the back of your mind, that little voice, right? That little voice on your shoulder that's saying, you're not good enough. You're not doing it right. You've got to prepare more. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. All those shoulds and those have tos are all part of that. And for me, I used to have a lot of ego. And when I say ego, I don't mean ego like, oh, I'm the best thing in the world, not that part of ego, but the ego part that says you've got to live up to whatever it is that the world thinks you're supposed to be. You can't let them see what's really going on inside. You've got to make sure that you're perfect. And for me, that was a process because my ego was loud and it was in charge for a really long time. And now that I've gotten through that, and it's been years and years that, and now I'm helping others to do that, it's an amazing thing because I still recognize when there's times when it could come into play really quickly. But I also realized very quickly I have tools to be able to combat that.
It's interesting. Again, I hear you. Oh, I hear you so loud. I would imagine most of our listeners do. Business people, a lot of responsibility, high achievers, public perception, as you talk about. But I guess when you talk about a brain dump, that sounds to me like a luxury to some people who are the high achievers, and you always have to have answers and always have to have your act together because you're the leader and people are looking for to you to be that person. So to have some place where you can do a brain dump, I think is priceless actually. Really priceless.
I totally agree with you. And I think that being a high achiever is amazing and being that go to person is fantastic until it becomes a coping strategy.
What do you mean by that?
When it's something that you can't shut off, when
Mhm.
it's like you're on the go and you're doing all the things and you're making it all happen. But if you take that minute to breathe, you suddenly get that it's a physical reaction, right? It's a no, that's not what I'm supposed to do. No, I shouldn't be sitting on this sofa. I shouldn't take time to have dinner with the family. I shouldn't take time to watch that TV show. I'm supposed to be going. I'm supposed to be doing. And human beings versus human doings, I think is a very real thing. And so one of the other things that I talk a lot about is scheduling joy. And that's where the joy and the clarity come together. While I love for people to have joy in their life every day, there are moments of joy that you can have any day, even your worst possible day. I call them glimmers. I think they were very popular on the internet a while ago, lots of memes about them. But it's the idea of those little tiny moments of joy that happen that if we don't take the time to notice them, they just go away. It could be something as simple as my coffee came exactly the right temperature when I got it from the drive-through window today, or I hit every green light when I was already running late to that meeting. But if we take the time to notice it, our brain is a protector, but it's also a problem solver. And if we give it a problem to solve, it wants to do a good job. It wants to solve it. So the more that we can show it those little moments of joy, those, oh, Wendy likes her coffee that way. Oh, she likes when such and such happens. Then your brain automatically starts to find more of those things. And then usually my clients notice, they're like, "It's so crazy since I've been working with you. I just had so many like these weird little moments of joy in my life." And the bottom line is, I didn't make the joy in their life. I just helped them to take the minute to notice it.
So that moment to notice it is a moment of clarity, is that right?
It is, and that's why the joy and clarity, I think, go together. The definition is kind of combined, right? But the scheduling joy, I feel like when you are clear on your values and your priorities, not only does it make all your business decisions easier, it makes your life decisions easier. When someone asks you to do something, whether it's something in your personal life or your professional life, you have a framework, you have the tools already set up to know whether your answer is yes or no to that. Where before you might have just said yes because you see a big white space on your calendar. So you're like, oh, I can make it. But once you have this all in place, these tools in place, you stop and you go, you know what? I didn't write on my calendar that I actually need that time for something else. And again, it can be something productive or really an unproductive thing, right? Because unproductive things are really productive. It's giving you that time, that space to recharge.
You also, Wendy, talk often about gratitude. And all of these things are obviously related, but talk to us about the role of gratitude in all of this.
Absolutely. If we were sitting here and you could actually see me, you know that above my head on my wall, I have gratitude as a lifestyle, right? And that's really something that I put there as a reminder for me. And I realize then when I do Zoom meetings, people get to see it too, which is great. But for me, gratitude is the fastest way to get to the joy and the clarity. It's like a secret sauce. We can add a little, we can sprinkle in a little bit of it, and we can get to where we want to be faster. And I know especially with high achievers, they wanna do everything faster, right? And for me, it's funny because people laugh, they know I'm all about gratitude, and so they go, "Oh, you must have a journal that's 17,000 pages long," and all of that, and there's all kinds of fantastic gratitude processes and practices, and I encourage whatever one works for you. But full disclosure, I started off the traditional, I guess, way is people say, "Oh, you should write down 3 things you're grateful for every morning." And that's a fantastic idea. Then they said, and at night, you should write down something you're grateful for, something that happened during the day. Again, fantastic idea. Problem for me is, again, I was a perfectionist. And being a perfectionist, if I wound up at the end of the day laying down and then realizing that my gratitude journal, which was maybe across the room, I hadn't filled it out that day, all of a sudden, that was a failure. I felt instead of having this, like, grateful, big heart, abundant moment, I was having this, "Oh, no, I've gotta drag myself out of bed and finish that another chore." So gratitude journal became a chore for me, and I said, "No, this is not the way this is supposed to work." So I actually took a page out of my friend, she goes by Doctor Unstuck. Her name is Doctor Kimberly Quinn. And she had an idea for gratitude that was really simple, and I use it with a lot of my clients to start with. It's just you open your eyes in the morning, before you do anything, before you touch your phone, before your feet hit the ground, say thank you. Just a heartfelt thank you. Because those first few minutes of the day are so incredibly precious of how your brain is going to function for the rest of the day. And just by saying those words, thank you, even if you don't even know what you're saying thank you for, because you just woke up and maybe you had a nightmare, or maybe you have an awfully busy day that day, it switches your brain chemistry. It allows you that moment and that time and that space for you to decide intentionally how to start your day, no matter how crazy busy it might be.
I have to share with you that I had a dream last night that I had to figure out how to get coffee for 18 people before they left our location to go home. And I'm thinking, oh, I got to find some place where I can buy a box of coffee. And then, like, dreams are goofy. And then, what am I going to do with it? And whatever. And eventually, I realized that these 18 people I needed to buy coffee for were already gone. The event had finished. And my first words were thank you. As you had mentioned to me to do that,
Yeah.
maybe not even as consciously as my thank you was, but thank you that I really don't have to get coffee for 18 people this morning. before they leave this gathering that we had, and of course, like I said, they were already gone. But it works. It was like almost a relief to realize, "Oh, I don't have to do that. Thank you."
I love
And,
that.
and obviously that can apply to any situation, like you say. I can't
Absolutely.
I forgot that all that happened until just this moment, Wendy. So thank you for that reminder.
No, I love that, and it is sometimes people have a to-do list, and they're very faithful to their to-do list, and I was
Mhm.
definitely very faithful to my to-do list, and it filled my brain. Even when I might have had a moment to stop, there was always something on the to-do list to do. One of the things I do with some of my clients is a to-don't list, and it's the things I'm not gonna do anymore, the things I'm not gonna allow to take me off the rails, that I'm not going to allow people to do certain things to me, and I'm not gonna allow myself to accept anymore. So the to don't list, the thank you, they're little things, but they're little things that if you start to practice them every day, again, it doesn't guarantee you happiness every moment of every day. I get that all the time. People say, Wendy, if I could be smiling and happy like you all the time, my life was like rainbows and butterflies, would be fine. Trust me, my life is not rainbows and butterflies every minute. But again, it's having the tools so that when you get into those dark places, you know that it's temporary and you know how to get out of it. And I think that's what's huge.
So a to don't list. That's an interesting concept. So that just reminds me of something else that I have shared with a couple of people that you and I have talked about previously, and that is New Year's resolutions. And don't make a New Year's resolution, but instead do the one single word guide, or I forget exactly how you put it, but I found that very interesting, and I think my listeners would be interested. Share your thoughts on that, would you?
Sure. Yeah. So, yeah, what you're talking about, I call it the anti New Year's resolution. And basically, a lot of us make New Year's resolutions. And then if you talk to somebody, I think it's actually the third week in January, they call it Quitters
Mm.
Week. When most of the New Year's resolutions get put to the side and then people move on with the way that they've been for the past 15, 20, 30, 40 years. And the idea with the one word, it's not my idea. There's lots of people who have been doing this for a long time. I actually learned it from a friend of mine who is a pastor who helped to write a book called The One Word That Changes Everything. And his book is very much has a religious base. Mine is not so much focused on religion, but the idea is that you're going to find one word that's going to help to guide you throughout your year. So in his book, he talks about looking outward, looking inward, and looking up to find your word. And I think for anybody, when people first hear it, they go, oh, one word, that's simple. I just got to find one word. But then when you take a minute to realize you've got to find one word that's going to be your guiding light, it's going to be who you want to be, how you want to show up in the world, what you want to achieve, how you want to feel during your days. Because I'm a huge believer in scheduling the way that you want to feel more than just what you want to do. The doing always comes, there's always more to do, but those feelings can really be helpful. So for me and my family, we actually usually do it at Thanksgiving just because it's the only time I know that everybody will be there and it won't be any extra people. It'll just be my little crew. And we actually paint our one words on canvas. We hang them in my living room and they're gaudy and they're silly colored and they're my favorite part of my living room. And we take down the ones from the year before and we talk about how that word maybe showed up in our life. And a lot of times it may not be the way that we thought it was going to show up or why we originally picked it. But almost always we can look back and realize, wow, this is how that word influenced me or took on a different meaning. And then, of course, we put up our new words and we talk about why we picked that word. And we first started doing it, it used to take weeks for my kids and I to have discussions and my husband, and we would talk about what our words were going to be. And we'd look through lists and we'd use the thesaurus kind of thing to think of words. And now I feel like, when November comes, at least one of my kids in our group chat will be like, hey, everybody, don't forget to start thinking about your one word. And usually within a very quick amount of time, they'll start throwing out words or going, I think my word is this, but I was also thinking of that. And it really sparks some cool conversations, and it's just a way to get focused. Again, I'm all about living intentionally, so it's just one more way to intentionally make a decision of how you're gonna show up in the world.
Well, I will tell you, this has provoked a fair amount of thought on my part. I haven't come up with the word yet, but I love the idea to do that rather than, like you say, a resolution, which they don't last. I do believe it is the 3rd week in January, but something that's a word that is much more universal, or maybe that's the right word. I don't know. Getting there, using it, being affected by it can take so many forms, but I can see how one word can be more significant in your life than a list of resolutions. So, thank you for sharing that. Wendy, I know you're an author, even though you didn't
Yes.
want to be an author. And I actually looked up, I think it was 2015 or 16, because I
Into
bought
16.
your first book and I was actually looking back for when that was. So, what was your first book and what was the motivation for you writing that?
Yeah, so the name of the book is My Cape is at the Cleaners, Choosing Happy Over Perfect, and thank you so much. You are one of my big first supporters, so I totally appreciate that. And you are very correct. I had never intended to be an author, never intended to write a book. Didn't really think I had anything to share or to say that wasn't already common knowledge. But the universe thought differently, I think. And so that book came out, and that one was really just my story, my journey of realizing that I possibly had lost my ability to dream, and it snuck up on me. And then figuring out, how do you go from there to being able to find so many dreams and figure out how to set goals again and figure out how to move in the world in a different way, which was something brand new for me. I'm actually excited because I am working on the finishing touches of a new book, and this one is called Too Many Tabs Open. So again, the idea of trying to find what's really important when everything sounds so loud.
You making reference to too many tabs open, and it feels to me like that's that clarity piece and that space piece and focusing on, let's see, really acknowledging what's heavy and pulling out what the real question is. And your first book was focused on your experience. What does too many tabs open focus on?
Yep, and I think that's exactly it. That first book was my experience and a whole bunch of quotes from other people that I thought were helpful and uplifting, and my hope was just that if somebody found one little nugget, right? That's always my hope. Anything that I write, anything that I share when I do a presentation, just if they get one little nugget that changes something in their world, then to me, it's all worth it. This one is definitely more focused on the person reading it. Of course, you're gonna hear me in it because I can't write anything without having a little bit of me thrown in there
Of
and
course,
some of
of
my
course.
stories. But it's really about how do we go through that process of getting clear and feeling that peace and that calm and that ease. I think ease was actually one of my words a year or 2 ago, and I've definitely held on to that one. I think it's just a great word. It doesn't mean that life is easy. But there's an ease, there's a flow, and I think when you find that, it's a giant exhale, is the only way that I can describe it.
That sounds like a great word. So
With
we've talked about clarity, gratitude, joy, kind of doing this work, and you talked about having tools.
yes.
So you have, I think it's a 12-week program that you run, is that right? To sort of help people navigate this process to end up with tools that enable them to manage these situations going forward. Is that right?
That's correct, and actually, I like to look at it as a 90-day program because as a high achiever, I feel like 90 days is doable. 12 weeks sounds like a really long stretch.
It sure does.
And I know they're the same. For me, it's 90 days. And it's really an opportunity for all the things that we're talking about for people to have the time and the space to do it, but to do it in a way that fits in with their busy life, to fit in so that they can start to try these because this isn't something where you go to a master class and then you're done and you're good to go. It's something that you need to learn and to practice and to figure out how it fits in your particular life. And that's what I'm all
Mhm.
about. It's not a cookie cutter kind of approach, it's very individualized. And that really is a way for people to come out the other side, to be able to say, I'm a recovering clarity addict, perhaps. For anybody who's listening who kind of has felt themselves nodding along and feeling that understanding our conversation, I also have something that's a lot simpler that I would love to be able to offer to your listeners if that's okay to do.
Sure.
Yeah. I actually just have a 10-minute clarity reset. And I think that's a really easy way for people to start because I feel like sometimes when people listen to conversations like the one you and I are having right now, then they go, "That's really great, but how do I actually do something? I don't have a brain dumper person right now. I don't know what I should be doing in this exact moment." Of course, yes, please get in touch with me. I'd love to talk to you. But I think that an easy way to start is just this really simple, it's just a couple pages long, 10-minute clarity reset. It's not therapy, it's not about fixing anything. It's just a way to very quickly quiet the noise and to get grounded again.
If any of my listeners have an interest, please reach out to me. I will make sure that Wendy gets your information and you hers and get a 10-minute clarity reset. I mean, seriously, to think that you can get a clarity reset in 10 minutes. And I know that's not the be all end all. I understand that. But you know what? At least these overachievers, high achievers will stop for 10 minutes to focus on something that what can make their life better. So,
Exactly.
Wendy, I have to say that in all the years I've known you, I've always seen you as somebody who is upbeat and positive and giving and all of that. I had no idea that there were certifications for this type of thing and the depth and let's call it science that's involved in all of this. And I am very pleased to be able to offer to my listeners something, again, that we don't talk about all that much. And that is, in addition to the performance and the metrics and the measurements and the deadlines, there's such a whole nother part to who we are, or there should be anyway, a whole nother part to who we are that isn't something that's metrics driven or deadline driven. It's how you live your life every day and you feel better and you probably make everybody around you feel better as well. Wendy, thank you so much for sharing your experience and your wisdom. When should we expect your new book to come out?
Yes, so right now it's in the editing process. My
Mhm.
biggest challenge right now is I'm working on a cover. So I've actually been in my family chat all day throwing out some options with colors, and my girls have been giving me some feedback. So I'm hoping it's going to be very soon that it will be available. If anybody does want to find out more about the book or they want to find out about the clarity reset or all that, the easiest way is my website, which is literally my name, Wendy Elover, elover.com. And at the very bottom is a little black button for the clarity reset. So just to keep it nice and easy, I always like for people to be able to get what they need when they need it.
Good. I'm glad you said that. And also, I'm sure on your website you will announce when the book comes out. I know the last one was available through Amazon. Will that be the case this time as well?
I believe so. To
Mhm.
be determined. We're working on that,
Okay.
working on all of that right now.
Okay. Very good. Well, Wendy, thank you again for being with us. I think this is a great conversation that very few people who are high achievers and busy people have, and they need to have it. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you again in person again real soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
You too. Please be sure to like and to subscribe to Real Talk, Real Growth, wherever podcasts are found. Join me each month as we discuss a new topic of interest. We'll talk and you'll grow.